welcome to this new TechCaptains episode. So today with Gareth, we are lucky to welcome Yael Oshri-Ballah. Yael is currently the VP of R&D at Karma, which helps shoppers saving time and energy with tools like warning you of prices drop, but she'll tell us more in a minute. And Yael started as a front-end developer, chief architect, VP engineering, now VP R&D. So hi Yael, how are you today?
Hi, good. I'm good. Thank you. Yeah.
So Yael, like
Hi.
we usually start with the person giving us an introduction on what is their career span, like how did you end up in the position you are today. I'm very interested to hear about what a VP of R&D does, but if you can maybe just give us that introduction before of how
Okay.
you got there.
Okay, sure. So how did I got here? So actually, I started in the army, in the Israeli army, as a developer. I don't know if everyone knows that, but every person in Israel has to serve for a few years. So my service was in software development, which was amazing for me, a good starting point. And after that, I started my career at Hewlett Packard. Actually, I started as a backend and later transitioned to a front end. HP was amazing, but it's really a big corporate. So I wanted to experience the startup world. And I think that you will see that in every transition, I transitioned to a smaller company. So from HP, I transitioned to a company of a few hundred people. The name is Kenshu. It's an Israeli startup as well in the search and advertising. At the time, I don't know how is it today, but at the time, 10% of Google search went through Kenshu. So there was a lot of data. I managed the data and the group, reporting and data group. And after a lot of years as a manager, I wanted to go back to be more of a technical role. So I moved into architect, and there is when I started learning front end and actually started working with React, which was a very new technology at the time. But still, as I said, I wanted to feel what a real startup is. So I moved to a small, even smaller company. I joined a small team as a developer to really try to work on a small product. It was called DSM. And I think that transition from overlooking big project into really do the day-to-day job, to go was really interesting because the whole world of software development was changed. When I started, there was no Docker microservices. There was, and today everything is about automation and cloud, and the developer experience was really a fascinating subject for me. But after 2 years there, I've decided that I want to go back into a more leadership role, and I eventually I found myself joining two founders. Again, this is now the smallest thing possible, like to be the third employee in a startup. And I joined a startup called Balance. I joined two entrepreneurs who founded the company. And there I was head of engineering, which means to start from scratch, right? From everything, to work on the technologies and write code and select, everything. After Balance, after almost 2 years there, I've decided to actually take a vacation. I tried to think, what's next for me, what I most enjoy. And I decided that I really want to work for first a company that is doing a cool product and a lot of innovation, something that it will be fun to work on. And also about the size of the company, I wanted to be in a startup, but not a very big one. And this is how I got into Karma.
So that brings us to Karma now and the role of VP of R&D. So what does a VP of R&D really does? Because I mean, every tech person, even when you are in the role of head of engineering, you're always doing R&D and trying to see if you can build the next thing that the business needs. So how does it really
Yeah.
differentiate here?
I think that in a lot of companies, uh, uh, well, let's talk. For example, the title and the role are really different from the side from companies with different sizes. For example, if you're VP R&D of let's say HP where I worked, it's totally different when you're VP R&D of a startup with a smaller set, smaller group of people. So I can only tell about my job, but different people have different experience. So what I do here at Karma, I manage the development team, the mobile, backend, and front end teams, and also the DevOps and technical support team and services and operations, which are also some of the teams are here in Israel and some of the team are around the world, Belarus and also Philippines and India. So, so what am I doing on my day to day? So eventually, I work very close with product, and together we define, you know, the what I don't know, whatever we do in R&D, we develop features for our customers. Yeah.
What's one exciting thing that you've developed because you claim AI on the website, or at least your
Yeah.
marketing team does? So what is it exactly? Is it a ChatGPT HTTP call, or what are you doing?
So basically, what Karma is doing is like your personal shopping assistant. So we have a mobile app, we have a web application, we also have a browser extension. So wherever you buy, we can be with you. And what we're doing is we allow you to save the products that you're interested on, and then we can help you to uh, with your shopping journey. It depends. Some people want to research, for example, what to buy, and for there we can offer them a similar item or alternative items. It can be the exact same item but with a different store, but and in a different price. It can be something that it's similar but it is in like an alternative product but not exactly the same. If a product is, for example, out of stock, we can tell you where you can buy it, or you can always subscribe to notifications, and we will actually monitor it, and we will find when it's back on stock, and we'll let you know. Or if there is a just price drop or things like that.
What kind of technologies do you use to
Yeah.
build that?
So, you mean from a programming
Y-
language perspective?
yes,
So we
programming
have
language.
Ruby, Java, Node. Yeah, we have a Java, Ruby, and Node, and TypeScript and JavaScript on the front end, Flutter on the mobile, uh, things like that. We're using AWS.
Do you? One of the things I was going to ask you, because one of the problems that I've noticed, and I've heard it from other people. In fact, my wife gets very annoyed by it, and I don't know when it changed, but on Amazon nowadays, when you search for something, you get presented 20 very, very similar products, all produced,
Yeah.
it seems, very low price in China. It's like a real problem. It used to be you'd find decent name brands, and now all of a sudden you have to wade through a bunch of junk. Is that something you're able to solve or looking to solve?
Well, one of the things that I think the product team here is really passionate about is also about sustainability and trying to, find the right place, to buy also from that perspective. But it's
That's a
not,
good idea. Yeah.
yeah, but it's not yet in the product. But we are thinking about that direction. I don't know if it's, solvable, but we are thinking about it. There are a lot of people who are concerned about this, not just not just us. And I hope that we will be able to present it to our customers as well. But yes, one of the things that we're also working on is, for example, to help you get like the review of the product, quickly, and not and get the scores also from other sites, not just the place that you're at. To really summarize things for you. You mentioned ChatGPT, so I think that one of the benefits of using ChatGPT is that you don't need to go and look in many places. There is like he's bringing all the information to you. So this is also what we're aiming for, to help them to find what they want to and guess it for them and present it.
Well, I think the traceability is a good one too. There's quite a few companies I've seen in this space that are trying to really focus on traceability using blockchain solutions for things that you buy. So I think if you're able to incorporate something like that as well, that actually could be really good, because quite a lot of people are quite concerned about that now, aren't they?
Yeah, I agree. But yes, I agree that there is a lot of concern now also for the ESG, right, to all the all this field as well. But for customers, we're not B2B, right? We're B2C, so people need to how can I say, it should be, the shopping experience is actually something that you do usually for fun, for on your it's so it should something that you part of your daily life.
So yeah, to compare all those products between different e-commerce websites, do you have a million bots making visiting websites and crawling with hundreds of proxies and IP address everywhere?
We have a lot of stuff. So we also have a lot of data and a lot of machines and a lot of clusters. Google, this is what they're doing, right? We are not Google, we're a startup, so we have less. But yes, the whole idea is to automate all these things for our customers. So instead, they will have to do that all the time. We're doing that for them. And also,
the other thing that was interesting to me as well is the tech ecosystem in Israel. I mean, I think it seems like there are a lot of very interesting tech companies over there.
Yes.
But one of the things I've heard is that, I mean, I worked in the US for 12 years. Now I'm back in the UK, and comparing tech companies, how they work and how they run in the US to the UK, there are differences. But most people think that, the US is pretty dog eat dog. It's it's a highly capitalist country, and they cut and slash things as quickly as they need to. But what's interesting to me is I've had at least 2 conversations with people, one of whom is at a very high level in quite a big Israeli company, who said actually in Israel it's even tougher, that people are really just they're really focused on being hyper competitive. And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that. Is that something that you see? Do you feel it's like that there, or how do you see it?
I think that the high-tech scene in Israel is really live. I mean, there are a lot of startups. I have a lot of friends on different companies. There are a lot of people who work in Israel for all the known companies like Apple, Facebook, Google, Oracle. All these companies has offices here in Tel Aviv, or in the Microsoft has a site really half an hour from my house. So there is a lot of American companies in Israel, and also I think this also brought a lot of innovations to Israel, and so there's a lot of very small startup, and it's very common that people will just open a startup and try to get funding, and because
That's good.
I think it's amazing, and because some of it may succeed, and then they become a real company, and they really provide value to a lot of users, but also to for the people who work in that company as well. I think that also I mentioned that, I just mentioned that in Israel everyone has to be in the army, as I said. So, and some of them we have like computers, units who work with computer science. So for me, I studied I learned to develop in the army. So you have few months that everything you do is learn from the morning to the night. You just learn, and after these few months, get a position to work on the most critical systems from the army. And after 1 year, you also need to train the new recruits. And after 2 years, you're the veteran. You know everything. So it's really speeding things up and create a lot of knowledge and a lot of talent.
No, I was wondering, like, because you're mentioning all the startup busting, etc. Like, if you find recruitment difficult among developers in Israel.
Well, I think last year it was crazy. I don't know how it was in the rest of the world, but here it was crazy. You had to really work hard in order to find good candidates and to convince them to come to work with you. It was hard. But in the last, I think, half a year or a little bit more, the whole interest, and you probably feel it, I guess, on other places as well. Then there is a recession. A lot of companies are trying to improve their financials, so it results with cutoffs. So this really now balancing it a little bit. So now it's I think it's back to normal. Yeah.
We have a tradition in the podcast that the guest is suggesting a book they would recommend that they really appreciated. And the one you mentioned to us before we started the recording is Clean Code, a Handbook of Agile Software Craftsmanship by Robert Martin.
Right.
Do you want to tell us why this book?
Yeah. Yes. Well, this book I read really a while ago. I think when I started it, it was many, many years. And I think that what I liked about this book is that it's actually talking about not just how to write code, it's about the fact that we read code more than we write it, and that actually software development is not just one person who is sitting and building something. It's actually a work of a team who needs to work together. And what you do and what you write or develop needs to be maintained by someone else. So you really need to think about the person who is going to be here in a few months and in a year, and how will they understand it. It's even can be yourself, like Yael of 2024. What would she think about that? So things that look so small, like naming and functions and how to style your classes, and also the emphasis of code that is testable, and the fact that you need automation and testing, and that you need to constantly refactor your code all the time. And I think that this is something that I really appreciate, and I think it's very important, not just all
So
the
it's
innovating new
giving,
technologies, but eventually
it's
this
giving
is a system.
principles rather than
Yeah,
actually technical.
this is what I took from it. Yeah, but there are some technical bites there too. Yeah.
But is it really different from anything else? I mean, I saw a quote which was first think cleanly, then implement cleanly, which relates
Yeah.
back to thinking about architecture first. I mean, is there anything really new in there that hasn't been sort of said
Well,
before?
it's a very old book, so I think that at the time, I guess it was new, and now I
Well,
think.
how old is it? When was it published? Do you know?
I don't know. I read it like 10 years ago, but when it
So
was
old
published,
in tech terms.
yeah,
Okay.
it's very
All
old.
right,
Yeah, but when it was published, we can check later. But you said that what's new in there. So I think this book is now a classic book, right? So probably a lot of ideas came out of it, but also maybe it summarized the ideas that were at the time. as I said, for me, it just gave also tools. For example, when I'm doing code reviews for someone else, I could tell him, no, this is not following the level of abstraction principle, or this is not. It's like give you some kind of common language with others instead of it being something that is subjective. I like it, I don't like it. Instead, it's really give some kind of rules, like a common ground that everyone can agree or not agree, but we can discuss in advance and then decide what we want to enforce or not enforce, or what do we take or we don't take.
I find it
So
very
I
interesting
like
that you
that.
mentioned the fact that, to make very clear cut for others, because, and also for yourself, otherwise in 6 months or a year, you might not know it. And it really
Yeah.
speaks to me because I often tell to developers in my team, like the code you just wrote, like, will you understand it in 6 months? Otherwise you end up like the joke when you read your very complex code from months ago. When I wrote it, both God and I knew what I was doing. Not only God knows, you know. So
Well, yeah, I mean,
Definitely.
it was the same for me as well. I got, when I was, coding really heavily, used to spend a lot of time thinking about what I was going to write and putting, comments in there. And a lot of it was for me because I found that 2 weeks later I'd forgotten why I did something. So I needed to do it for myself. But I think that was it's a really obvious thing that you said that I never, weirdly, after all these years, hadn't struck me. You said, you spend more time reading than writing. That is a very obvious insight now that you said it, but it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Also today, now that I'm a manager, all I do is just read most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also we have pull review processes and things that we didn't have 15, 20 years ago, whatever. So you do spend a lot of time reading as part of that. So helping people understand what you've written and the intent behind it, it's super important. You were talking about your career, which was very interesting. Because, like you say, you start out in the military, and then big company, smaller company, smaller company, smaller company, and then you said you were a chief architect at one point, and then you went back to a developer role.
Yeah.
So one of the things I was wondering is, did you find that after you did this chief architect role, did it change anything about how you built software then when you went back to being a developer? Did you think about things differently, did you find?
Yes, definitely. I think that like you said, I did different roles, and from each role, I took a different perspective. So I think that from the chief architect, I really understood, what's important and what's not from the company, to look about things, for in a year or in 2 years. As a chief architect, what you do is not about what the users will see today or tomorrow. It's about where the technology stack of the company will look in half a year or a year or 2 years. So this is the, at least for me, this was the idea. And when you're a developer, sometimes a lot of things really bother you, but you not necessarily have the time to work on that. So a lot of the things that all of us needs to learn is to find the business context of the changes that we want to do, to find why we are doing that, why is it important, what is it going to save, is it going to reduce the test pipeline into half of the time. If so, it's amazing. It's going to save so much time for people, so much time for the company. It has a really great business value. But we really need to understand, if we want to do a very big refactor, what does it mean? Is it really justifiable or is it not? So it's a lot. I took a lot from that.
Okay. And then maybe an obvious question, but Ron obviously was doing this TechCaptains process before we started doing the podcast. And I know that in that process, he spoke to quite a few women that were in tech. You're the first person who's come on to this podcast to speak to us. So I have to ask you the obvious question is,
Sure.
why do you think there are not more women in tech, and especially in leadership roles? Is it as much of a problem or perceived problem in Israel as it is, say, in the UK or the US? I guess those would be my questions.
Well, I think, as you know, a small, even for small children, the toys you play, the after school activities, sometimes they target boys for certain paths and girls for
different,
a different. So
Yeah.
I think it starts from there. But I have to say that I see a lot of changes in the last few years, and I can say that also in Israel, I'm a part of a community called Baot. I don't know, I probably never heard about it because it's really only for Israel, but I'm sure there are similar communities also in Europe and US. It's about helping other women to succeed in tech and really provide a support system. And everything is done voluntarily. It started from a few women who wanted to go into a meetup and noticed they are the only female in the room, which if you have 50 people and you're the only woman, it can be really not fun, let's say it this way, and or strange. So they started, like asking their friends, "Are you going?" And then to make sure they will have more familiar faces. And from that, it became a real community who have a lot of programs. For example, a lecturing program where everyone who wants to lecture in a meetup or a conference gets support from other female developers who already did that, and they like doing dry runs and helping them to submit for CFP, for example. There is a program for knowledge sharing, like doing a project in 30 hours of a new technology. So there is someone who's volunteering 30 hours of her time to teach some other group in something she's very expert on. And at the end, they have like a project they can present in their resume or just for fun. And there is a program that help you mentoring, like if you're starting a new position. For example, if someone is starting to be an architect and she doesn't know anyone who is doing that, she wants to get help, so she will find someone who will volunteer. We will attach them, and now she will have a mentor from the community that will help her. And and also, for if you need a job, then someone will mentor you through the process of finding your new job. And a lot of initiatives, like everything you think of. I wish I had someone who would help me with that. Then the answer is okay, so be that someone. Help initiate this program and start working with other people and help them. And today there are thousands of women developers in this community, and out of that, a couple of hundreds volunteering. So,
oh, great! That sounds really good. I mean, it sounds very comprehensive, actually, which is great.
Yeah. So I'm not sure I'm answered your question about how it is to what it means to why there are no women in tech. But what I wanted to say is that there are, and they were constantly working on having more and support more women to be there.
Well, I think actually you did give at the beginning, you did sort of answer in a way, and you said something that I actually believe, which I think it starts much earlier, which is what makes boys and girls interested in certain subjects. And so I think you did answer it, because you talked about that sort of beginning point, which is what boys and girls are taught, shown to be interested in at a very young age. And I think that affects them throughout their lives, really. Their career choices.
Right. I mean, on these inspiring words, Yael, thank you so much for being in the podcast today.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure.
Thanks, Yael. Lovely to meet you.
Okay. Have a great day.
And for anyone listening, we will be back in 2 weeks as usual. Thank you.
Bye bye.